Hey, my name is Jordan and I sing for La Dispute, and you're watching the Seen But Not Heard podcast.
Hey there, you're watching the Seen But Not Heard podcast. I'm Phil DeBoer. We are here at the Metro in Chicago, and it's an absolute pleasure to have joining me today, the front man of La Dispute, but also a personal friend, Jordan Dreyer. Jordan, it's good to see you. How are you?
Good, Phil. How are you?
Good, very good. It's crazy because it really feels like just yesterday when I met you for the first time. I remember it vividly. You were a freshman in high school and I was a senior, and we were both trying out for the improv team at the time. And I guess my first question for you is just, how did we get to be where we are right now, where you are fronting an innovative hardcore band that has a rapidly growing international following? I'm interviewing you for this podcast. I mean, it seems so crazy to look back in retrospect, but could you maybe talk about how La Dispute came together, how you built your following, and at what point did you guys decide to make music your profession?
Okay. Yeah, we started playing music pretty casually, just amongst friends, and in our hometown of Grand Rapids, probably, when I was a junior in high school, so a couple years after we met for the first time. And like I said, initially it was a hobby. It was something we did because we all had a mutual interest in making music. Wanted to occupy our weekends, I guess, and see what happened when we all came together. But we never really had big intentions for making a living out of it at that time, I don't think. And, like I said, it was something we just did amongst friends and to have a good time. And I think pretty early on, we realized that it was something that maybe meant a little more to us. Just playing shows in Grand Rapids at the DAC and these all smaller places, and seeing the reception that we got from people. So there's these really pretty preliminary notes of encouragement from friends and family growing up in Grand Rapids. A lot of kids that we went to high school and friends from just the area. So when I graduated high school, when I was the youngest at the time, we kind of decided to give it a whirl. Started playing more shows around the Midwest and kind of expanded a network of friends just by playing anywhere and everywhere that people would have us. Shows at houses and UAW halls and coffee houses and anywhere around the Midwest that would set up a PA and let us make noise for a while. And the more we did that, the more friends we made, and the more kind of build outward. And the next thing we were doing DIY tours in the United States. We went to Australia for the first time, and I guess around the time our current bass player joined about 3 years ago is when we all put everything else on hold and checked out college. Decided that this is what we wanted to do, and ever since then we've been pushing at it. Yeah. Now here we are in Chicago.
Yeah. Now you guys are signed to No Sleep Records right now, right?
Correct. Yep.
But as you kind of mentioned, it seems like you guys have always taken a very DIY approach to your music and your careers. I'm wondering if you could talk about your relationship with your label, but also what it means to you to make music with integrity and have kind of personal control over your own music and the direction of your career.
Yeah, I think part of it's a testament to the world in which we grew up. Like I said, the DIY community in the Midwest, playing basement shows and playing anywhere and everywhere, because you don't always have the option. There's not always a venue that's going to pay a band who draws 20 people, or give a band that hasn't played in the town before a place to play. And that network of friends. So I think the way that we've approached things is more than anything a testament to the way that we were born in the music scene, so to speak. I think it's important to us to keep tabs on everything, because I think the more you allow for outside concern and interest, the more you allow yourself to be compromised. So it's always been very important for us to keep things kind of amongst the five of us or within the family, which is the cool thing about our relationship with No Sleep, is that when we first agreed to work with them, they were at the same level as a label that we were as a band. And Chris, the guy who runs No Sleep, a good friend of ours, was interested in the same things, had the same passion and the same dedication and the same desire to create something that mattered and that had a lasting value, I guess, and that had, like you said, some sort of integrity. So we decided to work with Chris based on that, and it was before either of us had really established a name or done a substantial amount of things in a little niche in which we exist. And then ever since then, it's just been kind of a mutually beneficial, growing relationship. We've kind of grown up together, and we've been able to help Chris and we'll sleep out, and Chris has done a lot for us. So we're pretty fortunate to have that relationship, and all the relationships that we have. Like I said earlier, it's always difficult for us to branch out, but the more we've done this and the longer we've been a band, the more you realize that not everyone's out to get you, and that there are people out there who care about what you're doing and want to help, and that you should want to help as well. So we've kind of been really fortunate to build like a nice little extended family.
Yeah. Well, it's really cool how you were able to find other like-minded people who have the same kind of values and ethics as yourself, and were able to kind of grow together with them. And I guess kind of tied into that, I've heard you talk a lot about the importance of finding community within music. For instance, like you've done splits with Koji and Touche Amore. You're also a part of, I guess, a self-described movement in post-hardcore called The Wave.
An inside joke.
With the guys of Defeater, Make Do and Mend, Pianos Become the Teeth, and Touche Amore.
Sure.
Could you talk about where does that appreciation for community in music come from for you? Where did that appreciation come from? And how are you able to form such close relationships and friendships with these other musicians?
Sure. Well, I think, like I said before, I think part of it extends from our roots in the way in which we learned how to be a band. You realize pretty early on that you can't really do anything for yourself. You can't do anything. The whole do-it-yourself mentality is a little misleading, because I think it's much more of a communal effort. It's much more do it together than it is do it yourself. And I think we learned pretty early on that without establishing those relationships and without a mutual desire to influence and encourage, you don't really get anywhere. Because the only alternative is letting somebody who has a concern for profit help you out, and then you get back into what I said about you're compromising your art. So I think really it extends out. It's born out of necessity. Just the desire to help the people that you care about, and the people that you respect and that inspire you. So I think that's always stayed with us. From bands to record labels to band to people at shows. I think dwelling in an artistic world gives you a really great opportunity to focus on something that does matter, and that does. I mean, it might not be the be-all, end-all. It's definitely not the be-all, end-all, but it gives you another alternative, and it gives you a chance to grow. As for the wave thing, that's a little misleading, because I don't think we ever. The wave was an inside joke that kind of got a little
misinterpreted. Definitely misinterpreted,
and got a little out of hand with people who weren't in any of those bands. So we're a part of a really, really incredible community of bands, but it's not limited to those four other bands.
It's not exclusive.
No, there's so many great bands out there, and there's such a phenomenal network of people working to help out other people. And that's the best part about being in a punk band or a hardcore band, whatever you want to call it. It's just that desire to help, and that hospitality, and that that mutual respect is really, really cool. And I don't think you see it very many places.
Now you've had a chance to travel the world and tour. You've been all over the States. You've seen Europe and Australia, I believe. So you kind of have a bit of a global perspective on this now. But when you look back on your time trying to make it, I guess, in Grand Rapids or build up your following, can you say if there's anything unique about the music scene in Grand Rapids, or like if you were to compare it to, say, a place like Chicago, would you say that there's anything distinct about that scene in Grand Rapids?
Well, I think the most interesting thing to me about Grand Rapids, and obviously my perspective is a little skewed because I grew up there, because I am biased, because I love it, I love Michigan. But one of the interesting things to me about Grand Rapids is, especially comparing it to a city like Chicago or a city like Detroit, is that it's not a big city, it's not a small city. It's kind of awkwardly between this big city mentality and this small town mentality. And in that, like Chicago, I think it's really, I don't want to say easy, but there's definitely more opportunities for artists and for musicians and bands. In that there's more of a culture for it, and there's more venues and whatever else. And in Grand Rapids, you have a handful of resources, so you have this great combination of like, I don't know, it has to be self-sustaining, and it has to be communal. Like there's very little separation from like niche to niche. You know, I feel like in a bigger city like Detroit or Chicago, like you can have the punk world and the indie world and whatever. They can exist completely separate of each other.
They all do their own
in a
thing.
lot of ways in Grand Rapids, there's not enough space for it. You know? So like one of the interesting things to me is the diversity at shows and just the kind of bands that play with other bands and establish relationships. And it's really, really cool. And but I think really honestly everywhere you go, you see the same kind of passion and dedication. And you know, Chicago is outside of Grand Rapids. Chicago is one of the places where we've played the longest and the most. And, and you just like everywhere is very similar. Even going to Europe and going to Australia. One of my favorite things about going to Europe is just to be at the show environment and not feel like you're even in another country.
Yeah.
The only difference being that other people are talking a different language, but it feels like, you know, playing summer camp in a basement in Chicago or playing at the DAC in Grand Rapids.
Yeah.
It's the same kind of mentality that brings people together. It's just a different language. That's
Yeah.
really cool.
Yeah, that's the beautiful thing about music. I mean, for instance, I was just at a show at a place called The Empty Bottle here in Chicago last night, and there was a Norwegian black metal band that headlined called Kvelertak, and I got a chance to meet the guys after the show. You know, here they are from Norway speaking another language, but the people at the show still had such energy and appreciation for what they were doing. It's really cool to see how music can kind of transcend those kind of boundaries.
It's the old adage, it's the universal language. We toured with the Japanese band and it was the same thing. To be able to watch the way that the crowd reacted to a band on a nightly basis, a band as powerful and as impactful as Heavy is, and to not know a single word of what they're saying and still be moved in that way is a really almost spiritual kind of feeling, which is it's really cool.
We have to talk about your new album that just came out, Wildlife. First of all, congratulations, and I think that you guys should feel incredibly proud of yourselves, because I think that you really captured something very special in this album in particular. I'm really impressed by it, and when I first listened to it, I would say like the first thing I noticed was how dark the album was. Not only lyrically, the subject matter that you deal with, but I found that sonically, the way that the instrumentals were written, it really complements and kind of enhances the mood and tone that you set with your vocals. The other thing that I noticed were all the references to Grand Rapids, people and places and events there. For instance, like I grew up just down the street from King Park, and I can remember the shootings there, and I had the same high school teacher who described her son's battle with cancer and some of those other things. So for me, it was such a surreal experience to kind of read along on your lyrics and hear the album, and honestly, it was really like you were kind of expressing a lot of thoughts and emotions that I had about the city and kind of growing up there and such. I'm wondering if you could talk about what inspired the themes in this album, why all the references to Grand Rapids, and then how did you guys end up kind of coming up with this darker tone for the album? Or do you not agree that it's okay?
No, I definitely would agree that it's darker. It's definitely heavier subject matter. I think I don't know, the easiest way to explain is it's best to write what you know. And I think after we wrote Somewhere, there was, I don't know, I think everyone wanted to branch out a bit and start to explore different topics of conversation than the one that we'd relied so heavily on for Somewhere, especially me writing the lyrics. Just wanted to challenge ourselves and really, you know, discuss, I mean, I think that the last record deals pretty heavily with relationships, and that's something that everyone can relate to, but that's not the only thing that everyone can relate to. And I think especially now at this point in time in, you know, our lives and our age, trying to find the next step and like having to reach that crossroads where you're no longer allowed to be as young as you want to be, and you don't want to be as old as you're, you know what I mean? Like it's that 20-something, like, trying to make sense of life and trying to take that next step and secure yourself. And I think we wanted to capture that. We wanted to talk about all the things that affect people at this point. And it was easy for me to talk about Grand Rapids because I know Grand Rapids. So because that's been my experience. You know, everything that's happened to me in this period of time in my life has, well, not everything, because like traveling and touring and everything, but a large part of the things in my life that have introduced those 20-something questions occurred in Grand Rapids, whether it be working down the street from King Park, where was the shooting that's talked about in the song, or sitting in English class at Christian High, you know? And I think that's why there's so many references to Grand Rapids, Michigan, and because it's how we've experienced that portion of our lives. So yeah, and I don't think partly maybe we did intentionally write a darker record, but I think it was the stories kind of required it, you know, as kind of bizarre as that seems. But like most of the stories that I chose to tell on this record were things that I knew right away I wanted to talk about. There wasn't a whole lot of sitting and deliberating to try to find something in my life that seemed poignant enough to put in a song. It's like, I know I want to talk about this. I know what I want to talk about. I know I want to talk about this. So I think partly we wanted it to be a darker record, but I think partly it's just what this point in time in our lives felt like.
Could you talk maybe about like the nitty gritty of actually writing and recording the album? Was there anything that you guys did differently when you approached the production of this?
This time around it was quite a bit different. First off, in that we just changed the process around. In the past, we'd gone music to lyrics, and this time around we wanted to make it more cohesive and kind of marry those things. And so I would come to practice with an idea, you know, first off with the whole layout of the record, and second off with the specific ideas for songs. And I would bring it to my bandmates, and I would be like, hey guys, this is what I think. You know, this is how I think we should accomplish this, the moods and tones, and how it should feel, and then we talk about how we thought about it, you know, what everyone thought about it, and then we kind of plow through piece by piece and write the songs around the ideas and the stories and the structures, and then after that I would go back to it and I would just sit down and, you know, figure out how to word everything exactly. So that was a totally different process. And then recording for us this time around, I think for one, we knew how to make a record better than we did previously, and for two, we had more resources at our disposal. So the biggest thing for us this time around was just to make it more natural, to make it more organic, and to rely less on, you know, a computer program. We had the opportunity to do that with the people that we worked with, the studio that we worked with. So it was a really stressful and exhausting process, but it was also incredibly rewarding.
I imagine it's got to feel incredible to now have it released and be able to get the reception and everything that you guys are.
Just to have it off your back is great. Like just to consume a year or more of our lives, and to finally get to that day where it's like the record's out. Like that's a really great feeling. And then for people to hear it, to hear what they think, and to see people enjoying it is really, really, it's a crazy feeling. It's been so long since we've put out a full length that I kind of forgot.
It's been long awaited.
3 long years. So it's been fun. It's been really fun to have it out. It's fun to play new songs. It's fun to see people sing new songs. So.
And you're on tour now in support of Thrice. You're playing along with Oh Brother and Moving Mountains.
Correct. Yep.
How's the tour been so far?
Incredible. Yeah, it's been amazing. Not a bad band. That's a really shitty way to put it. Like, they're all incredible. Oh Brother is playing right now, and both of you are missing out because they're so good.
We gotta wrap up the interview.
And Moving Mountains, fantastic people. You guys in Thrice are the best. They're taking such good care of everyone. All the shows have been amazing. It's been really, really fun. One of the best tours we've ever been a part of.
Well, I don't want to hold you any longer because I want to go see the other bands, and I know that you got to get ready for your show.
Sure.
Before we leave, though, is there anything else that you would like to plug, or anything that you just want to say to your fans before we wrap up?
I get asked this question every once in a while, and I never know. I guess thank you more than anything. Thank you for talking to me.
You bet. It's so good to see you.
Good to see you as well.
We'll hopefully do this again soon.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Thanks a lot, you guys. This was the Seen But Not Heard podcast. Stay tuned for another episode, hopefully coming soon.